Well, this is a time when many conservatives are licking their wounds, sulking, whining. Even worse, they're sniping at each other. And this is all, of course, a massive mistake. Now, I may not be the greatest bastion of optimism and positivity in the world. I realize that I'm not the guy you turn to for a pep talk usually, but I also am not one for pouting. It's unbecoming of a grown man to pout or sulk. And besides, I prefer to stay on offense, even after a loss. In fact, especially after a loss. And that's why we're still playing offense here in Tennessee. I've already told you about the bill filed this week, the very first piece of legislation in the session, Bill 1, which will ban so-called gender affirmation, quote unquote, procedures on minors. And the media has lamented that our bill is among the strictest in the nation. And I will proudly admit that we are guilty as charged as far as that goes. Our legislation not only bans the medical abuse of gender-confused minors, but it also empowers the victims to sue those who are responsible for it. And what I believe this is an unprecedented step. The victims of this butchery will even be given the right to sue their parents. After all, parents who bring their children to doctors to be sterilized and castrated and butchered are the primary villains here, even more than the doctors, I would say. The doctor is a mercenary fraud, hurting children for profit, betraying his oath to do no harm. It's hard to get lower than that, but the parents somehow succeed as they are bound by an oath before God to love and protect their children. Whether they have said such an oath out loud or not, they are bound by it from the moment that their children are conceived. And those parents who fail to live up to it will pay the price, as well they should. But child abuse comes in many and diverse and deranged forms these days, and our goal must be to root it out, expose it, punish it in every form. And that brings us to Bill 3 of the legislative session, just filed by Tennessee Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson, also one of the principal architects of our anti-mutilation bill. Bill 3 will ban and criminalize any drag performance involving children. The Hill reports, quote, Tennessee Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson, a Republican, has introduced legislation to prohibit drag entertainers from performing on public property or at private functions where their performance may be viewed by a minor. Johnson's bill would amend a state law preventing adult-oriented businesses like strip clubs from operating within 1,000 feet of schools, public parks, or places of worship to include adult cabaret performances, including those of exotic dancers and male or female impersonators. Johnson told WKRN-TV in Nashville this week that the bill is designed to prevent drag shows that are sexual in nature from being performed in places where children may be present. Should the bill advance through Tennessee's Republican-controlled legislature and receive the approval of Governor Bill Lee, both of which things I think certainly will happen, first-time offenders would be guilty of a Class A misdemeanor punishable by jail time of up to a year and a fine of $2,500. Repeat offenders would be charged with a Class E felony, which carries a prison sentence of up to 6 years and fines totaling up to $3,000. So we have the anti-mutilation bill. This now is the anti-groomer bill. And predictably, the groomers are not happy about it. Our local news channel 5 interviewed some in the latter group, the groomers, who are upset, to get their reaction. And let's see some of that.
This bill would also ban drag shows where children may be present.
It's extremely hurtful.
Mac puts on pageants for male impersonators and divas. And she's the Nashville Pride president.
It would devastate our Pride parade, our Pride festival.
According to State Senator Jack Johnson, there were inappropriate performances in public which sparked the bill.
It is illegal to take your child to a strip club, and yet we're going to allow a drag show that has blatantly explicit sexual activity taking place in a public park where kids are present. No, we're going to stop that.
We also talked to Chris Sanders at the Tennessee Equality Project. He says it's frustrating that the first two bills introduced for this legislative season target them.
Merely dressing in the clothing of a different gender is not something that should be regulated ever. Not in our American tradition, not according to our Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and not according to common sense.
If drag kings and queens perform in public, they could be charged with a misdemeanor. And the second offense is a felony.
It's just not right. It's not our American tradition to stifle expression.
Rebecca feels freedom of speech and expression should be protected.
The wording is very violent to trans people, and it's dangerous and it's homophobic. And I think that there's a very slippery slope.
A slippery slope. Yes. Watch out for that slippery slope, folks. First, you tell adults they can't perform in burlesque for children. And the next thing you know, chaos has ensued. And by chaos, we mean that children are given the basic protections they need and deserve. This is what counts as chaos in the minds of the groomers. Indeed, it is homophobic, she says, because apparently in her mind, sexual performances for children are a fundamental and inextricable part of gay culture. That is her claim, evidently. That's what she is saying. There's a reason why these people panic over the possibility that they may not be able to sexualize children anymore. For one thing, they get a thrill out of doing so. They derive sick satisfaction from it. And they're upset that this favorite pastime of theirs will now be taken away. But they also realize that their ideological project, their cultural agenda, depends on destroying childhood innocence as quickly and efficiently as possible. And they're going to find it more difficult to recruit children into their cult if they can't first corrupt them. And that's why they're upset. That's why this law is necessary. And similar laws should be adopted in every red state in the country. And if you live in a red state that doesn't have a law like this, you need to be reaching out to your local legislators and asking them why you don't. But there are, basically this all boils down to the benefits of a law like this. First, the most obvious benefit is, again, it protects kids. In this country, there are special laws and policies put in place to protect all kinds of different special groups and victim classes. And usually the laws are unnecessary, and the special group neither needs nor deserves nor has any legal right to the extra protections that they're being given. But children are, in fact, a special group, and they are, in fact, morally and legally entitled to extra protections. The law is meant to treat them differently, with special care and concern for their well-being, largely because we recognize that they can't fully watch out for and care for themselves. And so then a functional and decent society recognizes that and offers them extra protections. You can tell everything you need to know about a society based on how it treats its children and based on what its laws say about children. And that's how you know that we are a depraved and dying society, because children are not only deprived of special protections, even as special protections are awarded to groups of infantilized adults, but worse, the law often specifically denies children even the most basic and fundamental rights and protections that everybody else has, such as the right to life. This is all backwards, and we're going to set it right. Second, politically, this is a winner because not only do decent Americans want kids to be protected, but also it puts the other side in the position that you heard in that news clip of having to explicitly defend and affirmatively argue for the sexual exploitation of children. We already know that they're in favor of such things, but if you don't wage a legal assault on it, they'll never have to openly own this horrific position. It's good for the public to hear when they make the case. It's good for the public to hear them make the case, so the public can see who they are. Third, finally, politics may be downstream from culture, but also sometimes culture is downstream from politics. It's not quite as simple as we sometimes make it out to be. And what I mean is that when the law is permissive of something, the public is more likely to see that thing as morally acceptable. When the law forbids something, the public is more likely to see it as morally unacceptable. This is just a fact. The law is not simply a reflection of public opinion. Sometimes it doesn't reflect public opinion at all. But at other times, it also shapes public opinion. This is why the left fights so hard to change the law to accommodate and affirm their wickedness and their various perversions. They do it not just so that they have permission to act as they want, but also so that the public will see their actions as acceptable, even admirable. This is why we have to fight in the culture, but also in the State House. And that's what we're trying to do here. We aren't dissuaded. I'm certainly not. In fact, I've never felt more motivated. And that'll do it for this portion of the show as we move over to the members block. Hope to see you there. If not, talk to you on Monday. Godspeed.